So this story takes place a few years ago, when I was 15. I'm a female, and at the time, I was going through this horrible, really bad scene phase. I was almost Facebook famous, and had a YouTube channel, but I only ever uploaded a video of this really creepy 5-minute long voicemail that was left on my message machine at the house. One day, I awake to an email from YouTube saying someone has commented on my channel, and so I checked it out and came across a strange love letter on my board. The person used my first name and went on and on about how beautiful I was and how amazing of a person I was and how much he loved me, and yet I had never met a person under the name he used. My face was not on my channel, nor was my voice. It creeped me out, so I simply replied with, "Who are you?" and left it with that. He replied with, "Your soulmate," and so on. A day later, I get a message from someone who isn't in my friends list through Facebook. I think it's odd, but whatever. I reply, and we begin chatting. He tells me he is the friend of the boy who commented on my YouTube channel, and he was asked to message me. I tell him that I find it odd that these two strangers just randomly show up, even though they don't even know who I am. We begin talking for about a month, and this guy on Facebook seems to continuously get more attached to me. His girlfriend breaks up with him, he goes on to college, he lives in New York, and I live in Alberta, Canada, so it gets weirder. He starts telling me things like how he loves me, and that he can't tell his friend because it'd break his heart. And he's 18, so at my age, it felt a little awkward at the same time. It wasn't exactly something that would be legal. I tell him that I don't feel the same way. He gets mad and then says that he was going to come and visit me during summer and changed my mind. He kept telling me that I couldn't not love him and would get increasingly angry when I said no and stop. I blocked him one day only to get a violent, angry message from the other guy on my YouTube saying that he knew that the other guy was falling in love with me and that it was wrong and rude to reject him and block him. So I unblocked him and started talking again. One day, he starts acting crazy again. I continue to say that I have no feelings for him, and he proceeds to tell me that he opened up a special bank account for the two of us, and that he had been depositing money in it and saving it across the past few months for us and for our future. Finally, I just blocked him, and again, he threatened to kill himself for the 4th time if I refused to love him, and I never replied back to the YouTube guy. Back in September, my mom gets a call from a guy who said something like, "I did something really bad." My mom asked the guy what he did, and he said that he was in the room of a 14-year-old girl and that she was asleep. He also mentioned disturbing things that he was going to do to her. My mom asked for the guy's name, and he gave her the name of one of her close friends. My mom said that her friend would never joke like that. The guy said that the girl had a certain type of underwear on. My mom asked the guy where the girl's mother was, and he replied, "She gave me permission." My mom tried to get information on the 14-year-old's mother, to which the guy said he wanted to ask my mom questions of his own. Of course, they were very weird questions. My mom said that she was going to hang up, and the guy threatened, "If you do, I'm going to touch her." He said this more than once. My mom finally hung up. A minute or two later, another call. Same guy, but this time he was moaning. My mom hangs up and calls her friend to see if he called to play a joke on her, to which her friend's wife said that he was at work. My mom called the phone company to see if they could trace the call, as the number was hidden thanks to star 67. After a while, the phone company said that they were not authorized to do that. My mom and I went to the police station to report the call. By this point, not only is my mom scared that a 14-year-old girl is going to be molested, I'm scared about this guy. Could he figure out where we live? My mom and I waited for close to 20 minutes until a cop saw us. The entire time, the cop seemed uninterested in what we had to say. I know that's not hard to believe, but apparently this cop had no time to hear about the disturbing call. My mom is now convinced that the guy knew she cared a lot about children. She worked in child protective services for over 15 years. and just wanted to push her buttons. I was walking alone at night with headphones on and without my cell phone. As a female, this is probably considered a stupid thing to do, but I have been walking and running at night ever since I was 13 or 14. I was naive at first, probably, and have become even more complacent because I have never had any bad experience doing so. I grew up in a small town, and I'm not a morning person. I always just enjoyed exercising at night. Less cars on the road, good way to wind down before bed and think about my day. So this evening, it was approximately 8:30 at night. I was out for a walk, going up a hill towards a pretty uninhabited part of my route. I live near a newer subdivision that is being developed into a wooded area near a lake and towards a rural part of town. So it's a semi-residential, semi-rural area, if that makes sense. Lots of houses set far back from the street, and also lots of fields in this part of town. I noticed that the street had been lit up for an unusually long time. Usually the road is pretty dark from behind me. I turned around and saw a car creeping along at a snail's pace behind me. I got a weird feeling, but thought maybe he was looking for a house address or something, so I kept walking. The driver and sole occupant of the vehicle, an older guy, maybe in his 40s with glasses on, was now driving right beside me at a crawl, like 5 miles an hour. I started to panic, but still gave him the benefit of a doubt. I gave him a confused look in hopes to realize that he was a normal dude, just lost in the neighborhood, but he met my stare with no emotion on his face. This was when I clued into the fact that yes, bad things can and do happen, and likely that is what's occurring right now. I immediately did a 180 and started walking in the other direction. I looked back to see he had pulled into a driveway. Relieved, I thought he had reached his destination and that I was just being paranoid all along. The sickening sinking feeling in my stomach when I saw him back out of the driveway to continue definitely following directly alongside of me. This is when the adrenaline kicked in. My subconscious was like, murder? Not tonight. I booked it lightning speed into a side street that connects to the street I live on, and jumped into the first lawn I saw, and then dove into a hedge. I removed my highly visible vest I wear on night runs, and shoved it under my black hoodie, and watched him through the leaves, drive up and down the street several more times looking at my direction. I was hyperventilating now, and debating what to do. I thought about knocking on this person's door whose bush I was hiding in, but the urge to get away was just too strong. I waited until I didn't see him drive by for at least 15 minutes, and then I decided I had enough adrenaline to run home. I was only about a 7-minute walk away, and I decided I could make it in about 3. So instead of walking on the sidewalk, I ran through people's yards in case I saw the car again, and I could go to a neighbor's door for help. I have never ran so fast in my life. I was hyperventilating when I got home. I am a runner, so the run itself would not have affected me in that way. I was bright red and shaking, and I called my mom immediately. I have never posted on Reddit before, but I am finding myself still in a weird mental state 4 hours later. I am sharing this for myself, to work out what happened. Like perhaps it was a misunderstanding, and he was harmless. But I am on high alert right now and can't sleep. My roommate just opened her door, and I jumped about a foot out of my seat. Basically, what I learned is this: if you're a female, especially, don't wear headphones on your walks, and don't go alone, and bring your phone, or walk during the daylight hours or during busy times. This can happen to anybody, and it's not a situation that you want to be in. It's terrifying. Right now I am so happy that I'm safe at home, but I keep thinking, what if I had kept walking up the hill instead of into the darkness? Some people truly do have evil intentions, and my gut feeling was that this guy was up to no good. I used to travel a lot when I turned 18. I would hang out with this girl called Lisa. She worked in a little shop next to the train station, and I would keep her company. One day, I was in the shop with her, and this man who I've never seen before, he looked like a bodybuilder, started hanging around there. He introduced himself and said that he worked at the car wash. I think that he liked Lisa, but Lisa only liked girls. For some reason, the car wash guy took a disliking to me. I can only imagine that it was due to the fact that Lisa and I used to hang out a lot, and he was just jealous. I started getting these strange, deranged phone calls where he would scream and shout and rant on the phone. Most of these were saved on my voicemail. The next time I saw the car wash guy, he chased me into the staff room and pinned me against the wall. After this, things only got worse, and I began to realize that he was mentally disturbed. The next time I saw him, he tried to prevent me from getting on the train to get back home. The cops came and talked to him while I got the heck out of there, but this would only make him even more mad. The next time I saw him, he followed me on the train back to my hometown where my friends were waiting as I texted them in advance to warn them that I was being stalked. He came and followed me off the train and walked behind me for about 500 yards down the road, where luckily my friends were waiting. Like a coward, he ran away and I never saw him again. I never considered my neighborhood to be safe. I've been approached by men in cars while walking home from school or public transit more than once. But that's not what I'm writing to talk about. Those aren't a huge deal comparatively. These are actually two separate events, and I have no way of knowing if they're actually connected. Considering this happened to me over 7 years ago, I probably never will. I'd like to think that logically, they are connected, considering they started and stopped around the same time frame. I'm fairly certain that I had a stalker or something along those lines for about a year. My bedroom has a long, narrow window in it that face the front yard. We have 2 huge trees in the front yard that always leaves this huge thick blanket of dead leaves on our front yard. And because of those trees, we also have a lot of squirrels. I can hear them thumping around on the roof sometimes, as well as around the leaves in front of my window. I became pretty accustomed to the sound. It was just a gentle shuffling and crunching noise. At some point, inexplicably, I start hearing the same noises, but they were much louder, deeper, and more deliberate sounding. You know the movements of a squirrel that are really twitchy and spastic? This was not the case. It was pretty easily identifiable as a person walking around right in front of my window. I'm one to sort of face a threat head on instead of backing out. I only opened my curtains partially to look once and to confirm it was a person. It was dark and the features were indistinguishable, and at the time, he was sort of off to the side and out of my immediate sight. I got into the habit of banging on my window hard if I heard them outside. It was usually followed by the sound of them rushing away, because I suppose I scared them. I took it a step further once and moved to my front door directly to the right of my room and flung it open. I turned on my front porch light and yelled at them, and that again made them run off in the opposite direction. I wasn't taking that crap from them, and I tried to make that super obvious. It's not like I wasn't alarmed. I just think my defensive instincts outweighed anything else during the time. I told my mom and her then boyfriend. My mom didn't believe me, thinking it was just the squirrels, but her boyfriend did. He got a plank of wood, hammered nails through it, and laid it upside down in front of my window, like a makeshift trap. We were so smug about it. The person would come now and again. There were maybe 20 times in total, if I remember correctly. In addition to that, there was something more alarming. Back then, I would walk to the bus to go to school around 8 a.m. There was always a car which drove down the road at the same time, which was normal. I mean, I was leaving the same time every day, and they probably had a job that had them do the same. I remember it specifically. It was jet black with tinted windows. The license plate had a green light installed on it to shine on it, and I thought that it was awesome because my favorite color was green. But, as you may have already assumed, the car was not as cool as I thought. One day, it slowed to a crawl beside me, moving just enough to keep in pace with my walking. I didn't know what to do other than keep walking. I couldn't see inside the car at all because of the tinted windows. Then I stopped, and the car stopped as well. The windows rolled down, and I didn't get a good look at the person inside because the first thing I saw is some type of a gun pointing straight at me from inside the car. I think my brain just kind of shut down because that memory is so hazy for me. It was probably a handgun of some kind, and I was frozen because I didn't know what was happening. I just stood there in shock. Then, after what was probably only a couple of seconds, the person pulled the gun back into the car, rolled the windows up, and sped off. I don't know what they were planning on, or if they had just wished to scare me. All of the fun black car and window stalker adventures ended after that.